Hello, everybody. Welcome to Collateral Benefit here at the Zeros on Heroes podcast channel. I am Mike Mercadal. With me, as always, is
Will Watkins.
Will Watkins, that's who you are. Will, pleasure to see you again. We are back live. We had a little break last week. We took some time off for
Mm.
our own self-care, or whatever you
Hmm.
want to call it. What when you hear the phrase self-care, what is the first thing you think of?
Well, I have issues with the term self-care because it's one of
Mm.
those therapy speak that has been co-opted and corrupted.
Yes. Yeah.
Because self-care in its true form is brush your teeth, get enough rest,
Hold yourself accountable
take your
for
medicine,
your own. Yeah.
eat healthy food, exercise, do things that will make you happy, meditate. And then people seem to have combined it with the Parks and Rec treat yourself. So
Treat yourself.
so they confuse self-care with treat yourself. They say, "Well, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna buy this designer jacket, for self-care," and it's like that's not what that is.
Yeah, that is always a conflict of like once you like the worst person you know is in therapy being told that they're right about everything.
Yeah,
And it's like, "Oh no." There is some objectivity to this. It's
yeah,
not all just subjective. Hell of a way to start off the episode. We did do some self-care, but the responsible way.
yeah.
This podcast is all, if you're new to the show, this podcast is all about if you're going to improve your life in one way, it will have impacts and effects in other areas, and you want those to be benefit as well. Hence the name collateral benefit, you know, as opposed to collateral damage.
Hmm.
You do something and man, I didn't expect this bad thing to happen. Hey, guess what? That happens to good stuff too. You gotta pay attention. You gotta work on it. Instead of treat yourself, improve yourself. That kind of thing. Uh, I remember loving the hell out of Treat Yourself when I saw it on Parks and Rec, and I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah. And now that social media has turned into like sweet treat culture,
Yeah,
there's like a whole like,
yeah.
oh, a little treat. I'm gonna
A
give
little
myself a
treat.
little
Yeah,
treat. I'm gonna give myself a little treat, and it's like, if you did that to your dog would be like, enough treats. Your dog, it's like, how many treats before I get sick? It's like, no, no, thank you.
yeah,
It's the world of excess, even for sweet treats.
yeah. It's like kind of the thing where it's like instead of saying treat yourself, it's treat yourself well.
Ooh, I like that. Instead of saying treat yourself well is a great one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the we open the floor to, so I love collecting those little phrases. That's a good one. That's a super solid one. For everybody who's watching this in the future, welcome.
Mm.
Welcome, time traveler.
Mm.
If you're watching this in the future, please comment and share so that we can hear your insights. But also, you can join us live. We stream at on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitch at Zeros on Heroes on everything. So you can join us live in the chat and share with us your insights of what your catchphrases are. What are your little things, your little mantras that you say to yourself when you want to improve your day? What are the things that you say to? What are the things you've heard other people say where you're like, "Ooh, that's right." Like, damn it, I hate to admit it, but that's good. That's perfect. You can also email us at zerosonheroes at gmail.com. We have our Gmail account because it's free. Actually, we do own zerosonheroes.com. We should probably get our actual own
Oh,
email. We should, brother, we used to be banging on all cylinders, and
yeah.
now we gotta
Oh.
get this back to the thriving podcast economy that it was, in spite of all of our reservations towards doing that sort of thing and
Yeah, yeah,
commoditizing
yeah.
your every hobby. Yeah, we used to do a pretty regular podcast. We had a show in New York City that we would do
Yeah.
live with our people, with our crew that we ended up forming every week. Um, we were comedians doing comedy in New York City. I was thinking about that just recently, about how much of my mental health used to be benefited and subject to going out there and getting your thoughts out, like having a place
Yeah.
to get your I always have this metaphor of like everybody's a lawnmower, right? We're just chopping grass, right? We're all just chopping grass, and some of us are big lawnmowers, some of us are little, some of us are the old fashioned, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some comedians are the kind of lawnmower that when the grass gets collected in a bag, if you don't empty that bag out every so often, you're gonna fuck up the machine. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I always thought of comedy, where it's like I'm just collecting all of the stuff that I've just been running over and to inspect later as I dump it out. And that was always how I viewed comedy, as kind of like I guess people view therapy that way too. Like, let's dump this out. Let's see if we ran over any of our precious belongings and destroyed let's see what.
Yeah, that's interesting that like so many different cultures have that same concept. Like in yoga, there's clearing the throat chakra, where it's like if you don't get out your feelings or your emotions, it's gonna clog you up there. Or, the idea of getting something off your chest.
Yeah.
It's always talking about the burden on the shoulders, the burden on the chest, or whether it's, even related to a cow moves because they need to be milked.
Right. Yeah. Well, I always have this thought, because someone shared with me one time, whenever you're hungry, you're still just a baby crying. Because have you ever been hungry and not told the people around you? Have you ever been hungry and not been like, ooh, I'm starving? And so just in the odd occasions, like, oh, I have a granola bar, whatever, anybody around you, strangers, we're all just babies crying, like, feed me, and that's what it feels like. Because anytime someone mentions that they're hungry, and I'm like, oh, little baby, and then I do it.
I would say that's a very like telling thing of like about our society. The babies are the most honest about their feelings. Where it's like, I'm hungry. I'm gonna cry about this until I get food.
Have you ever seen a baby trying to like pick up something that they are literally standing on, and then they're crying? Like, I'm like, that is honest. What a metaphor. I've seen human beings that are adults go through the same bullshit, metaphorically speaking, and literally sometimes, depending on how drunk they are, trying to like, oh, here's a problem I'm creating, and I'm trying to solve it while continually creating the problem. And it's like, oh, I see how this goes. Once again, on this podcast, we try to we have 3 major focuses, and they are all interconnected, hence the collateral benefits. Body, it started off as a podcast that we wanted to talk about fitness and how we were improving our body and changing our workout culture, the stereotypes of workout culture being like broy, like a negative, like a jock. I wouldn't say bro. Like, bros are fine. If I'm from Miami, bro's everyone, literally everybody. But the jock kind of bully mentality that people have of working out your body, and then the mind, which is, all the therapy stuff, if you want to think about it that way, but also just kind of your own way of thinking, like formulating, your own thinking structures, and then how that benefits your community, your relationships with people around you. That's like our blanket term for your body, your thoughts, and how they manifest in the world, right? So we're starting with something that we constantly share with each other, things of workout and fitness culture that we struggle, or also that gets us thinking about like ideas. And I saw this thing, I want to share it, that it is I just want your initial thoughts. I know it's in the thread, but I just want your initial thoughts of how bodybuilders looked before supplements existed, and this is 1890 through 1910. And bulk is not the thing, but these guys are shredded.
Yeah.
Whenever I see, like when I saw this, I immediately think of like all of those old man strength, like construction workers and people who like have like blue collar jobs that they just like inherently jacked.
Yeah. There's some people, these are genetic specimens. These are, but I mean, it goes back, you look at statues of Roman gods and Greek gods and that kind of thing. They're all ripped, and even the statue of David has very low body fat, and it's just like, yeah, these people existed, but it's like that even back then, like those were like freaks of nature.
Sure, they were anomalies, but also I think about like they clearly worked towards that as well. Like not the average Joe didn't look like that. They had
Yeah,
their genetic, but even if you have super genetics, those guys are in the field of bodybuilding even
yeah.
at that time. So they're also working towards that goal. And then I think about like Socrates. Did you ever hear those quotes about Socrates? I think you brought it up on this thing about how it's like the burden of every man to see their
Oh yeah,
peak physical. How what I don't know the exact quote, paraphrasing, but it's like
yeah,
you owe it to yourself to see how best you can make your own physical form. You know,
yeah.
like, and I think about that's he's like thought of as one of the greatest thinkers of all time, or some philosophy. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's just something philosophers told us to justify their their careers, but it's true. Like I always think about how even if like when's the last time you used your peak physical strength? Like you've exerted yourself to 100%. It's
Today,
rare.
today. I mean, at the gym, but
Yeah, but you are. I was saying, I
in
guess not
daily
you.
life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess not. I guess not you as an individual, but like you, the royal you, as like when do you get the chance to do that when you're not at war? And even then, it's not like now it's very different
Hmm.
than what war was in early man. But like, when's the last time you like pushed yourself to your limits?
Yeah,
If you go to the gym, you're doing that kind of constant. That's what a PR is,
yeah,
like.
yeah, yeah. It's you know what that reminds me of is Back to the Future Part 3 when he's talking to I think he's talking about shoes. He's like, "Oh, these are good for running." He's like, "Running me? What do you mean running?
Yes.
When you run for fun?" He's like,
You ju-
"Run for fun."
yeah.
Like there were people in like the old west weren't like, "Oh, I'm gonna go for a jog." It was like, "I'm gonna run if a bear is chasing me."
It's like I have to conserve my calories because the winter's coming.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like that's how I was doing some kind of like housekeeping for the channel and looking at all the videos that we've posted and there was something that came up that someone had liked and shared of the clip of the that we're just babies when it comes to how we know what we know about the body, like medicine and
Oh yeah, yeah.
fitness and all that stuff. There was a clip that got like I guess a couple people shared, and it was interesting because it is true, like of how we are infants. We're in our infancy when it comes to really knowing about chemistry and the body and biology and our physiology, because like it's still fairly new. Um, to then to like have I always think of those snake oil salesmen from like that Pete's Dragon is the go-to
Yeah,
one
yeah,
where
yeah.
he's like, I have a cure for all your ails, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Music Man and the monorail from The Simpsons.
Yes, like that dude selling, a tonic for whatever that oh, you and then if you go back a little bit further and even at around the same time, the people who would be like, "Oh, you got ghosts in your blood. You got to get the demons out." And then it's like, "Yeah, I guess." And there was nothing to refute it. And now it's almost like there's too much to refute. Like you have the real stuff, but then also people are like, "Oh, what you need are some crystals."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I just keep thinking about like how we're all still figuring it out in terms of like comparing it to like now we're still all just country prospectors going run for fun. That's literally all everybody does now because every social media thing about fitness is I've never gone into a comments section of those things and been like that was worth it.
Yeah. It is interesting though that there's so much I always used to say like exercise and sports science is like grown exponentially in the past 20 years, but even the
Mm.
past like year, it's even going further. Where it's like I recently watched a video of a guy being interviewed who has a PhD and basically breaking down the supplements and stuff like that. He was
Mm.
going, a couple of years ago, we thought citrulline was one of the best supplements you can have, but realize it's not as good as we thought it was. So I'm going to
Mm.
knock it down 3 tiers, and it always comes back to basically the three supplements that have the most effect on the body as far as supplementation goes are the caffeine, the creatine, and the any sort of protein supplementation. But once again, these are all supplements that if you're getting enough protein, you don't need to supplement with a protein shake or whatever it is. You don't need a protein bar if you get enough protein in the day.
Yeah.
And creatine is a naturally occurring substance in the body, that kind of thing. And caffeine isn't some great, it's not going to make you perform better. Caffeine is a mental stimulant. It's going to make you more focused and make you, instead of drifting off in your workout, you're going to have more ability to push yourself further.
Speaking of the confluence of like the caffeine, being a mental stimulant, both of us have late in life realized that we are ADHD and and uh, take Adderall for our mental health, which I have found is a huge benefit to my workouts
Oh
when
yeah,
I'm
dude.
focused. It like so this is the collateral benefit of taking care of my mental health. I've accidentally improved my workouts by taking the mental stimulant. So caffeine, like in a pre-workout, or Adderall in terms of taking care of like my focus, all of that translates to when I'm at the gym, I'll be like, rather than pick up my phone and look at a video or something, I'm like, no, I have this many sets left. I have this much time. I'm sure the other people waiting for the machines are like, thank you, Adderall.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, thank you for, and then, but that's our thing, because I have friends who smoke a bunch of weed and go work out. And I'm like, is that their version of chemical stimulant or chemical, something changing your chemical process in your brain to help them work out, where they don't notice how tired they are, or they don't notice the pain, or they don't notice, like they're just high.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, how
And is that
different,
real or is that a placebo effect?
like, I am not the kind of person that can smoke weed and be functional.
Yeah.
I get a case of I gotta lay down right now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that person. So when I hear how how different of a reaction people have with that drug, I can only imagine that it's so individual in terms of like what supplements you take. Cause I stay away from protein, like powdered, anything in powdered form,
Hmm.
because I had a kidney thing. And they're like, ooh, stay away from, because a lot of these things have buffer anti-caking agents and stuff like
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
that I'm sure other people pass normally and it doesn't affect them in any way, or maybe it does, who knows. But for me personally, I've had to make the choice where I'm like, okay, so if I can't do protein shakes or protein bars or protein anything with like
Hmm.
powdered stuff, I have to get my protein from animal protein, plant protein. Like, I have to get it from some natural source, like
Yeah.
natural in air quotes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like all the studies that come out, even like creatine, which is the most researched
Yeah.
supplement out there are still some people that are creatine non-responders, where if you give them this extra creatine, it doesn't have any effect on them because their
Yeah.
body just naturally does that on its own. So anything more, you're just peeing it out. And
Yeah. Yeah.
with like protein, it's like it is a true supplementation thing where, like I said, you don't really need it. And if anything, if you want to go more cost effective, the greatest post workout, if the anabolic window has been disproven many times, but so many people, the greatest post workout thing you can drink is chocolate milk, like straight up just chocolate milk, or even regular milk,
Is
because
that
it's
why after recess I always felt awesome
yeah,
drinking my chocolate milk? It's after recess, you get your little snack. You get your
because the sugar in the chocolate milk as well, regular milk has sugar as well, but that sugar supplies goes straight into the muscles. It's the vehicle for the rest of the nutrients, so it brings the fat and the protein. And it also, despite what you saw in Anchorman, they've done research where the greatest rehydrating beverage is milk. Like if you
milk.
ever
Milk is a good choice.
yeah, it goes like milk, and then water is right underneath it as far as like hydrating you.
Contrary to I had no idea where you were going with that. What that is? Hey, look, man, I get it. When you hear like people, I don't want to disparage anyone, but the people who are toxically animal rights people, who are like, why are, like, when Joaquin Phoenix gets on a stage and starts talking, giving his thank you
Yeah,
speech
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for his award that he won. And then he's like, why are we drinking milk? And it's like, what are you talking about? When people get to that level of like, we're the only ones that drink animal milk that isn't the after development, after like infancy. And I'm like, do you think that animals wouldn't do it if they didn't have access to it?
Yeah.
Right? Like it is one of the most like fundamental fuel sources for nutrition and a million other benefits. But it's also like, I think this is the conversation where there's an element of like, yeah, we're babies when it comes to knowing anatomy and physiology and how the world works in terms of our bodies. But also like at some point, someone drank milk from a cow or camel or goat or whatever to survive. Like it wasn't like we had the privilege of choice then. Now we're squeezing nuts into juice and calling it milk because it looks like it. But it's like we've given ourselves so many more other options. But at some point, drinking milk saved humanity, right?
Like that's always been my thing about. You ever notice that Joaquin Phoenix's point in case, the majority of people who say who are extreme vegans or extreme vegetarians or anti this are very higher echelon on the financial scale.
Yeah.
It's like, the same way that, there's no atheists in the foxholes. There are no vegans in the homeless shelter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is so, not to get into the political side of things, but that is actually a big alt-righty kind of white supremacist foundation. There's like if you stretch it out on a long enough timeline, you get back to any position of privilege has white supremacy built in, like it's the default setting. And veganism and animal rights and all that stuff is based out of an anti-global majority process where it's like, it's like, oh, all animals have the right to live and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, when you're thinking of other human beings as less than human to do the farming for you, suddenly that becomes more humane as a like, it's like, hey, don't look over here at the fact that I'm mistreating humans. Look over here at the fact that you're mistreating animals. Like that becomes a very awkward moment when you're having a conversation with somebody who's a nice, I was about to say a nice lady, because that's what my interactions are usually, that where someone's like, oh, well, I don't eat anything with a face. And I'm like, yeah, but how do you treat humans with faces?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with different darker faces than yours. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? Tell me about that. I don't care. Like, oh, you think treating animals what makes you a good person? But humans as a whole are not removed from the animal community. We are part of the animal kingdom. We just have consciousness that we can determine within ourselves. That maybe other animals have it, but we for sure have it. Like we for sure, you could sit and talk to another human being. That to me is like the delineation when it comes to animals. I have no problem with you being a vegan. Yeah, I have no problem with how much of a carbon footprint it has. I have no problem with you drinking almond milk and how much water it wastes. I have no problem with any of that stuff. I'm lying. I absolutely have problems with it. But I'm not going to bring it up in the conversation in the context that you're having a social interaction with me about like, oh, I only eat fish and this. And I'm like, oh, great. Good for you. I don't do that. If I eat whatever I can.
That's the thing of personal choice, that whatever you want to live your life is your personal choice. Feel free to live your life how you want to, but once it starts to infringe on other people's quality of life, that's where I don't know if I've said this before, but one of my big aha moments of my values was when I was watching the movie Food Inc. You ever see that one, the documentary?
And I've seen clips of it as people share and stuff,
and it's like all like, this is how the food industry in America, blah, blah, blah. And there was a segment on chickens and how they treat chickens and why you should buy free range chickens and blah, blah, blah. And it said, in order to keep costs down for the chickens, they put them all into a small container and they're all, scrunched in together. And how inhumane is this? And this is why, so this is why you need to buy organic free range chickens, which cost, 4 times as much. And I was like, Yeah, man, if that's what it takes to make chickens cheaper so that poor people can eat protein,
Yeah,
fuck those chickens. I don't give a shit about those chickens. I give a shit
yeah.
about the human beings who can't afford food.
Yeah, I would not. I don't want to see anybody starve. I don't want to see chickens starve. There's a whole on a. We are the product. We are at the whole late stage capitalism and blah 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 blah. There's the system in place is not conducive to giving a shit about anything but profits.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about those chickens. They don't give a shit about the people that can't afford the chickens. You know, like whatever you're saying, if it doesn't address like the bigger issue, you're just part of the problem, right? Like you're just, you have like let's work within the system to keep everybody fed, and then change what we can. But there's a certain inherent problem when it's like, oh right, this giant corporation bought up all the local chicken farms, and now this is the only way to do chicken,
Yeah.
right? Like because it maximizes profit. Like ugh. Look, this is not a political podcast, but it does matter. Like if you when you talk about like why gyms exist, like why people choose, like we said, like back in the day, if I was a Spartan soldier, from day one your training is with the intent to go to war, be a
Mhm.
soldier, fight, kill. Your physical fitness, if you were a medieval peasant, you were or a medieval knight, like soldier, not even a knight, just a soldier that they would just send out into like Braveheart style, just a bunch of dudes running at a bunch of other dudes. They give you like a half forged, like sword, and they're like, good luck. That's because you were viewed as disposable. You weren't training to get to see the. I would like to see some more striations on my obliques.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
nobody's doing that there. You're like, I need bread to live, and so that I need to go to war so that that money gets sent back to my family so they can live. Like the we are. It's such a privileged state in the United States, at least, that as bad as it is for a lot of people here, it's still like the best it's been for
Oh
like
yeah.
the average person. Like uh if you account for all races and the global majority. So it's like
Yeah.
some places it feels like they like whenever I hear like certain political arguments, I'm always like, to what end? What is the goal here? Like what are we talking about? And that's why it does kind of go into like just even food deserts
Yeah.
in like if you go to like you're in New York, I'm going back, I'm gonna go visit, friends are getting married, I get to go revisit to New York, I'm
Yeah.
excited. And my first thought was I want to go get a bodega sandwich, and I'm like, oh, a bodega is not the source of the most nutritious meal in the world, but for some people that's where they get like their only hot meal of the day, or their only like they get like that's their food, and then they get
Yeah.
a bunch of, and unfortunately they're not selling free range chicken at the bodega. They're selling some processed chicken cutlet that they bought manufactured, and then they cook it up for you, chop it up, and it's delicious.
Yeah.
I don't know what my point is, but the idea of like everything is connected in terms of like when someone is being exclusionary with some sort of like there's a position of privilege that a lot of people don't recognize in the world of fitness. When you're saying, oh, I take these supplements, it's like, oh, I can't afford, I don't, those are too expensive, I don't take it. Oh, you can't get big without these, taking this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, sure, okay, but you'll always have a better advantage if you can afford better stuff. That's like a universal thing.
But it is also because I mean, you could also, if you wanted to, just get like a bunch of like cans of tuna fish
Mm,
and just like eat a bunch. Because I used to do that, when I wasn't able to afford the protein powder, and because protein powder has gone up in price. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
But I mean, well, I got the packet, so it was like 79 cents per packet of tuna fish. It was like 20 grams of protein, and I would literally, as I'm walking, because at the time I was a dog walker, and I would just like scoop tuna fish out of
Bleh.
the thing.
Yeah.
I just eat it as I'm going.
It's like when what is those, it's like those cat treats that they just squeeze it out of the tube. You're just that man, I remember like when I was broke, I was not even thinking about fitness. I was just thinking about I had to lose weight. I've always had back things, and being lighter is just beneficial to me to ease my pain. So when I was doing no carbs, I was like, man, so many foods are fillers, and I would have to go to the grocery store, and I would have to go calories per dollar.
Yeah.
Or suddenly it didn't matter what I was trying to do for my physical appearance or my at a certain point it was like, okay, potatoes are super cheap and very satiating, and they have good with fiber, and let's get some potatoes. Okay, rice, big bags of rice. I'm Cuban. Hey, yeah, I'm Latino. We got rice. That is our staple for poor people in the world, is rice. And for all people, everywhere, rice is important. So let's get a bunch of bags of rice. Eggs. I
Well,
need
not
protein.
not in Ireland. They don't have rice in Ireland.
They
That's
don't have.
no. That's a potato. That's potatoes.
Well, the potatoes. I said potatoes. I
Yeah, yeah,
included the
yeah.
potatoes, but rice is like rice is also another staple, And then I realized like, oh, this isn't. I was buying like someone was like, oh, you're buying that poor people food, and I'm like, yes, because like it's still food. The key
Yeah.
element is like it's still food. Like it don't shit. Actually, hold on, let me find this video.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
it's literally rice and beans is the best food you could ever eat because it's complex carbs, simple carbs. It's got the fiber, protein,
yeah,
so many different nutrients are in there. Like rice and beans is when I was working at a restaurant. I would as when I was like 18 years old
mm,
and I didn't have any money to eat food. I would just get a we had like a station with like uh, uh, chili that had beans and ground beef in it, and
yeah,
then
chili.
I would get like a bowl of rice, and I would just while nobody was looking, I would scoop the rice in the chili and I would just eat it, not knowing that I was. And then at the time, I started like getting more muscular, and I'm like, oh, wow, oh, well,
Yeah,
this is
what's
weird. I
happening?
guess
Yeah.
I'm growing, but I didn't realize I had no idea about nutritional values and things. And it's like, oh yeah, looking back, I was eating the best kind of food possible.
Yeah, that's so people shit on rice a lot when it comes to like the anti-carb phase of
Oh yeah,
everybody's if you grew up in the 90s, and like Atkins was like a huge deal, and
yeah,
um like it's like suddenly it went from low fat to no carb. That was like the big shift. um and as a Latino person whose rice and beans were just villainized, people were like, "Oh, you eat rice?" I still struggle with eating rice. Like, and people are like, "Oh, you got to eat brown rice," and then they've discovered that brown rice is less good for you, or in some ways,
well,
like,
it's basically it has the same amount of calories basically.
yeah,
It has a lower glycemic index, which in the grand scheme of things, unless you have diabetes, it doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
And it does have a little bit more magnesium, but only slightly. So if you enjoy brown rice, eat the brown rice. But if you hate brown rice and you prefer white rice, eat the white rice.
Eat the white rice. Well, the so like I found this video here. Let me show you. Um,
You make me holler, you make me sweat.
let's turn it's basically like Caribbean food can still be considered like good for your diet, like good for your nutrition.
Yeah.
But then it goes on to show the traditional Caribbean portions.
Portions.
And it is 100% true. So like, like look at this. There's this plate. It's white rice, but like a cup, like a half, like a little scoop. And then here this is like the equivalent of like my grandma feeding me versus like somebody who knows
Yeah.
what they're like nutritionally, what's balanced, because that was a thing where you had to eat as much of the filling food because you had to go farm, you had to go work, you had to go build, you had to go do whatever it was, because and you needed the calories. Now, like yeah, you can have rice, but it's this much, not the whole plate. You can
Yeah.
have like beans, but you can have the like load up on the beans, but don't load, but also have like a bunch of vegetables on there. Protein, a normal portion of protein, and I just looked, and plantains
Oh man.
are a staple. Oh my goodness, so good. Um,
Fuck. Now I want plantains.
dude, yeah, it's wild to me. It's how not having certain things, you start to like crave it like crazy. But the point of that is that it's literally all the food that I grew up with, like the poor people food,
Hmm.
the like Latinos, you know, there's a reason we've thrived with, rice and big giant, cooking pork shoulders and like ham hocks and things like that. A pernil in the oven lasts for fucking weeks.
Yeah.
You know, like you cook it, you process it, you salt it, you do whatever it is, you preserve it, you have meals. Like I think back at how much my whole life was my grandparents doing meal prep. Like that's genuinely like they were feeding like 20 people on like pennies, you know,
Yeah.
like that's how it felt, you know. And thinking back on it now, where it's like, oh, when I was broke and I was like, oh, I should have just done what I was doing, what my grandparents did when they first moved to this country, where it's like, hey man, you got to make do, you got to figure it out. And meanwhile, I'm like, just like that vindication of like, it was good.
Yeah.
People talking shit, they were genuinely wrong. This is still good, you know, like. As you get older, you start to like realize, oh, what worked and what didn't, and this totally worked.
It's funny, like growing up in a household that is worried about money. You see certain, like you would get some item that is very cheap, but then like it would become popular, and the price of that item would go up. For instance, like back in the day, it was like skirt steak was super cheap because
Yes,
it's a terrible cut of meat. But then all of
Oh
a sudden,
my
skirt
God.
steak became popular, so the price of
Yeah.
skirt steak went up. Or my thing growing up was we would get chicken thighs instead of like chicken breast, and I prefer chicken thighs because more
Yeah.
flavor. It's got a slightly bit more fat, so it's not the great, you know.
It's harder to mess up. It's
Yeah.
like you can dry out
It's
breast
tender,
really easy. Yeah.
and but then now like it's like chicken thighs are so popular in restaurants, and it's like, oh man,
Well, for a lot of Caribbean people, also oxtail is the new
Yeah.
one. Everyone's like, before you would like, ew, you're gonna eat the vertebrae, and then the second people realize like, oh, the gelatinous kind of like texture you get from those things, people are like, like cooks and chefs who know are like, yeah, of course, that's delicious, that's good for you. But like, once suddenly it becomes rich people or affluent people start to like get less squeamish about something because
Yeah.
like, ooh, like that is the thing that comes up also in terms of like why quote unquote white people don't season their food
Oh yeah.
after spending their entire history sacking other countries to steal their spices. It was because once something becomes readily available, there's the swing of, oh, we gotta have all of the spices. Rich people are the only ones that once it becomes readily available, they're like, oh no, that's for poor people. And it becomes less desirable. It's like, oh, like suntans. At some point, getting a tan in old like Victorian England was like viewed as what poor people look like.
Yeah.
Because they are out there working in the sun. If you were very,
But then
Fair-
once it was, you had the money to go to a
to go
beach vacation.
vacation, it
It's a-
became a status symbol, and that became the thing. So like, don't go chasing status symbols, but
Yeah.
it's hard to separate them if you're, like if that's all that's available is like suddenly every oxtail, like, I used to buy oxtails for pennies and stew them up and I would feed my family. Now some pretentious YouTube chef influencer is like, you got to eat oxtails. Suddenly I can't find them in my grocery store anymore. Now, what's the
Yeah.
next cheapest thing? It's like, Jesus, how much cheaper can you get,
In relation to the spice thing, kind of goes along with what we were talking about. Like for the longest time, white people did steal all the spices and they used all the spices. And then what happened was in America, it was your boy Kellogg and what's his name? The guy who invented the graham cracker. They were very puritanical, and they believed that spice in food led to lust. And since they were the rich wasps, they said nobody eats spices anymore because it's going to make you sin. And then because then it was like only the black people and the poors can eat flavor, so they can have that. But us wasps, us nice white Protestant folks, we're gonna eat graham crackers and bland food.
It's amazing how many things have been ruined by like one white guy being like, I don't like it, and then suddenly they have the influence to determine like MSG is bad for you. That came from a straight up anti-Asian racist guy. He's like, I got a headache from eating this Chinese food. He just didn't like Chinese food, and then told everyone in the world to this day to this day, you see people putting MSG. Like, there's been some resurgence of like, hey man, just eat it. It's a naturally occurring salt that that's. And then people are like, oh, MSG is bad for you. Why are you saying the things you're saying? And it's one fucking guy. One guy ruined it for everybody. The low fat craze that has increased the use of seed oils and vegetable shortening and all that stuff.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
reason why we don't have beef tallow fried McDonald's French fries anymore was one fucking guy who was crazy. You look at him and he was insane. Like, he was like one of these quiverful religious weirdos who said that animal fat is gonna kill, is the reason why we all have heart disease. And then someone believed him. Why? You know, it's crazy to me how many things are ruined by like one dude and everybody believe it. Like, we're all the same. Like the entire world is built on the same kind of information dissemination system as why every kid in the 90s knew that Marilyn Manson took out 2 of his own ribs to suck his own dick. That's how all this health information has been passed down for, like, what are we doing? Why is that the thing?
Yeah, so much is just like fear-based science, where it's like, and by science I mean put that in quotes.
Yeah,
where it's like you know, like I mean, going back to the creatine thing, when creatine first came out, they said, oh, creatine causes men to go bald, and it was like there was one study with a bunch of rugby players in Australia where they kind of saw that their testosterone levels kind of matched, but it wasn't the kind of testosterone that leads to hair loss, and the study has never been replicated. But there was still that, like, for the longest time, like, oh, if you take creatine, you're going to go bald, or, you know, any of those like studies where it's like, there's going to be some bad, it's like, no.
The aspartame thing recently.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh my God.
It's like I get what they're, everybody's trying to justify their jobs. Everybody's trying to justify the thing you can, and just like any tool, science can be used to express a bias. Good science removes bias because of peer review. So like, when people are constantly sharing that aspartame thing, I'm like, okay, are you sharing the headline, or did you go read? You know, like, you wouldn't be sharing this if you read the thing, or if you did more research. Like, people think just Googling and getting their confirmation bias sent back to them is research. It's not.
Yeah, because the headline on a lot of those is scientists find possible link between aspartame and but it's like, when you look at the tiers of how they rated it, it's like possible carcinogen, which is on the same line as like apples.
Yes,
eating an apple has the same possible, because then above that is probable.
Yeah,
and that's like eating charred red meat. But it's charred red meat, because regular red meat is down here.
yes.
But if you put a char on it, now there's carcinogens, and that's more likely to give you cancer than. And I think it was the amount with too was like, you would have to drink like 100 cans of diet soda a day to equal the possible.
It's the language, that scientific language and like common vernacular is constantly. It's the idea that evolution is just a theory.
Yeah.
Because it's like, people use the word theory to say guess.
Yeah.
I have a guess. I have an idea. But in scientific terms, it means something else. So like, oh, it's possible is very different than scientifically possible. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's the
gravity,
language we use.
Gravity is still a theory.
Gravity is still a theory, but I guarantee you, if I jump off my balcony, it's not suddenly going to stop working. Gravity. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's proven over and over again. Theories are just like the idea that it's testable, right? Yeah. So they can tell you can review research and all these things. That it's amazing how much like how abused it can all be. Like, when they hid the fact that lead was bad for us for so long.
Yeah,
they would use some science. You know, like, you found out that oh, this scientific study was produced that said that lead was safe, and then it's like, well, who funded it, and what were the methods used? And they're like, we don't want to.
Yeah, one of the
you know what I mean? It's because it was the fucking oil companies that were like burning lead in our gas, that were like, oh, you know, to the point where you can't find air. Like, there's lead literally everywhere in the world, that you have to drill through a certain how many meters of ice before you can get to lead-free ice in like the ice caps. It's like, you know, science can be abused but the idea that certain things are true, whether you like it can be manipulated, but there's certain things that, like, if you really look at good science, the truth will reveal itself, you know?
Yeah, one of the things, recent ones I thought was interesting was for the longest time, there's the thing about like, oh, young girls are going into puberty earlier and earlier, and they're like, oh, it's because there's so much hormone in the beef and so many hormones, but it turns out the hormones that are in the beef are bovine hormones, and they can't translate to humans. And the reason they found, after all these years of research, they're coming to a conclusion is because children are fatter than they used to be. They have more excess adipose tissue, and because of that, the hormones are out of whack, because the more excess adipose tissue you have, the more your hormones go crazy. So it's like, it's not that there are hormones in the cattle, it's that we're feeding kids too much stuff. We're feeding too much sugar and unhealthy foods.
It's so crazy, like, because this is the type of thing that we have to get into, like unlearning bad behavior, unlearning bad knowledge, right? Like unlearning wrong things, like the food pyramid that was drilled into our brains, where it's like 7 to 8 servings of grains a day. It's like, yo, wait a minute, but that was what we were taught as kids. And like, with the got milk ads, when they were just literally like funneling milk into our bodies as children, they're like, it does a body good, like the ones literally showing a young person and it was like a weird sexual thing. It was like, I'm drinking milk, and when my body gets to be desirable, it will be because I have made it desirable with milk. Like these crazy ass commercials. I would like it's because it's marketing. It's all ads. It's all like perspective, because there is a financial influence in public perception.
Mm-hmm.
There always has been, there always will be. And now that it's like so like globalized in terms of reachability, like you can reach literally anyone. You could post a video today and millions of people will have seen it by tomorrow. That it's easy to get such terrible wrong information out. And what is it? A lie can get halfway around the world before the truth has even put its shoes on.
Yeah.
Like that's so true. So when you're going and you're looking up nutrition, you're looking up fitness, you're looking up health, you're looking up mental health, you're looking up anything that this show would be based around, there's so much bullshit out there that even like now I feel bad, like not having answers for all of it. Like I want to say, man, look at this person. Like there's a couple people that we reference pretty often, like Dr. Mike that you enjoy.
Yeah. There's guys like Dr. Lane Norton, who he like his whole channel is like straight up calling out like Paul Saladino and all these like those like douchebags who are like, you gotta eat only meat and you don't never eat a vegetable. Vegetables will kill you. And
carnivore diet, and I'm okay.
There's another Dr. Mike, I forgot his last name, but he's a emergency, not a general practitioner, but he went toe to toe with what's his name, Dr. Gupta or whatever his name was. And he was like, you said that grapes are sugar bombs and you might as well eat a Hershey's bar. Like, do you actually believe that? And he was like, yeah, well, cigarettes are actually pretty good for you because blah blah blah. And he was just like, and he was like calling him out to his face. So I think it's like when you guys got guys like him, and you guys got like Lane Norton and Mike Irzatalo, Dr. Pack, and Menno Henselman, these guys who are like straight up like calling out like misinformation online. And that's like, there's part of me, it's like, they're so combative, but it's like, I feel like you have to be. It is basically a war.
Yeah, like, because here's the thing. Everybody wants to feel like they're getting the shortcut.
Yeah.
They want the trick. What's the trick? There has to be the trick. It can't just be the things that I've been told. Otherwise, I would have done it because I am a good person. Right? Like everything is like about self-value. So like, it's like, if it, like that's one of my favorite quotes from Arnold Schwarzenegger, is that when you see somebody with a built, like a bodybuilder, nobody gave it to him.
Yeah.
You know, like, he had to earn it. He had to earn the physique that he has. I forget the exact quote. I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
of course. But the idea that there's people that want, it's conspiracy theory culture, right? Like, if I wouldn't be a failure, it has to be a conspiracy theory that makes me a loser. Like all these incels online and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, women, there's a code and have to psychologically manipulate and blah. Like there's or you could just like seek to improve yourself as much as you can. I always say that, there's every once in a while I'll come across some of these dudes. This happened a lot in comedy. You would see a lot of these dudes who are just bitching about being single all the time or whatever. And I'm like, hey man, if you focused on yourself half as much as you focused on hating these women, you might accidentally become fuckable or like a dateable guy. You know what I mean? Like, just you're focused on the wrong problem. You're focused on the wrong part of the thing. And I think that's what gets a lot of people when it comes to this health and fitness sphere, that they're like, what's the trick? I don't want to, like now everybody's doing the Ozempic thing, which fuck it works. It's scary how effective it is at what it does. But what people don't realize is that there's a finality to how much you can take Ozempic. Like there's a detriment to you're essentially like, you're starving yourself without the starving feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, like there's a danger to this sort of thing that works for the people who need it. But if you are a healthy person who is abusing it, it's like any drug, opioids are hugely beneficial to the people who are in chronic pain, people who are in, like post-surgery recovery, like they have a function. People who abuse it, that's where the problem lies in. So like when you have these fitness influencers like I'm sure the carnivore diet will have an effect similar to if you did like a no carb thing or whatever. I'm sure that I'm sure there's benefits, but nobody's out there hunting their wild game across the tundra. They're not doing the thing that the paleo diet was the perfect example. Is that I'm not chasing a pint of Haagen-Dazs across the plains to go eat my meal. You know what I mean? Like I just get it mailed to my house.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to find you have to fight. You do have to be more aggressive with no, that's wrong. That's a lie. You're lying to people. Like calling it what it is. Everyone's trying to be so diplomatic online when it comes to these. Like those shirtless dudes walking through the supermarket.
Oh yeah.
For some reason, like where it's like, hey man, you're weird. You're wrong. You're oddly crazy. And the people who follow you and believe you, you should apologize to them. You're hurting them. This is crazy what you're saying so that you could sell them your own bullshit. Like that's worse. Like get out of here.
Yeah, that's why I love the Instagram user Joey Swole. You ever seen him? Where he like calls out bad gym behavior.
Absolutely.
Where it's like, guys who refuse to put their shirt on in the gym even though the gym manager said to, and or like the women who set up like traps to, and they call out a guy who wasn't even staring at them, that kind of thing, where it's just like
social media engagement,
trying to get social media engagement and clout and stuff like that. And it's like you're trying to ruin people's lives over maybe you get a few hundred followers out of this. Like
there's a certain ironic detachment that we all want to have. We're on the internet. Everyone has to. The internet has become this kind of necessary evil, right? Like it's crazy to me how much bullshit there is out there. It's crazy to me because because again, I've seen it grow, right? Like I've been around since the beginning of the internet, like if you're old enough, there was a moment where this was seen as a revolutionary thing to be able to communicate with people who had like-minded interests across the world, a decentralized social structure. MySpace, when it was banging, was like, I think hard to explain that feeling of like, you were not being marketed to. There was no advertising. At the most, there were little banner ads that everybody knew to disregard anyway. There was a very real sense of social network. It was social only. Then it became social media, where now everybody's watching my content. How do I monetize it? It becomes a media empire based on your social network. Now it's just social marketing. Everybody's turned into like a shitty QVC host on, if you like, TikTok is just nonstop people trying to sell you shit. Literally every video is a link with an ad. Instagram is literally like, buy my ad, like here's ads in your face that is blended with the content, so you can't tell the difference.
Oh man, the other day I was scrolling through and I saw some sort of video, and it was from I saw it said Don at the top, and I was like, who do I know who's named Don? When did I start following somebody named Don? And then I realized it was for Dawn dish soap,
Yeah.
and I was like, Jesus, they just had it
Oh my
listed as
God.
Dawn, and I was like, oh man.
I fully detest corporate social media accounts that are trying to be like sassy,
Yeah.
and like they try to be like edgy, you know, like, oh, whoever's running the Wendy's social media account is, no, get off, stop it, I don't want it, get blocked. You're a multinational corporation that abuses farmers. No, you can't pretend. You pay shitty wages to your workers. You cannot pretend that you're some sort of a human kind of face. You know, the Citizens United should be disbanded on the internet. You are not a person, a corporation. Corporations are not people. Like, stop pretending to be. Just put your ads in your little ad box and leave me alone. I'll look at it if I want. That's why it's like a struggle now to pretend like we're not also trying to be on the internet and all that stuff. Again, we always say this every episode. We would be doing this whether or not anybody's watching.
Yeah.
It's beneficial for us to talk about these sort of things because it fuels us for the rest of the week, to motivate us to focus on the important positive things, which we will do now.
You know what I love? I love going along with this thing about not being paid to do stuff. I love New York City when I will see some sort of art, street art on the wall, and there's no Instagram tag at the bottom.
Yes.
There's no signing. I don't know who did this. There's no way to find out who did this piece of art. It's just a piece of art.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking for recognition. Nobody's looking for a follow. And it's like, oh, I love this. Just a pure, somebody wanted to make something pretty.
Art for art's sake.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's genuinely like you know, I don't know who Banksy is, and I don't know what the business behind Banksy is, but the fact that that's still possible, that he's just pretending to be some anonymous artist and just throws up a stencil every now and again, and people are like, ugh. I hate the culture that's built up around street art, but the fact that there's still people just creating art is important for society.
Yeah.
You know, getting into the whole AI thing, where like I saw this quote where somebody says, why would I bother to read something that nobody bothered to write?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so when it comes to AI, it's like, why would I care about that? I hate AI art. There's something about it that just grosses me out.
Yeah.
So when I see people we know posting stuff that's AI art, I'm like, ugh. You know, like get it away. Like, I have an aversion to it because it feels like just the phoniness of everything is enough to be like, no, gone. So like whenever I always get bummed out when I see some content creator that I enjoy suddenly start advertising on their, like doing like a sales thing on their TikTok.
Yeah.
I saw this one guy who was an artist, and he does live streams, and he was painting, he does people's portraits, and it's like, he's a good artist, you know? And then he's like, hey, have you guys seen this 3-in-1 wireless charger? I love it I'm like, fuck you, dude. Sorry. And I unfollowed him. I'm like, nope. That's enough for me to unfollow you. That's enough for me to get you. Like, I'm like, oh no, it was such a bummer. It really was. It was such a bummer. But
I will appreciate a good transition into an ad read. I know you probably watch Screen Crush as well, or old friend Ryan Airy, but he'll be like, you know, in WandaVision, she has to deal with all this grief. And that reminds me, I've gone through dark times too, which is why I use BetterHelp. BetterHelp Screen Crush code. And it's like, all right, cool. I'll go with that.
I love Screen Crush. I watch it pretty religiously whenever there's any show that I'm following.
Yeah.
I am, after the episode airs or after the movie, I see the movie, I will go watch the Screen. I respect their opinions about this stuff, and I understand the necessary evil of it all, of having sponsored, like a sponsor for your videos. I admired the effort he goes through to make it feel like part of the content, so it's not just a jarring like, and now an ad break, cut. here's
yeah.
me, or where it's like I admire that amount of effort to make it feel approachable. I do not like ads in anything, like I get it. It's part of how media works because capitalism. But like I love the feed, I love the channel, and I do appreciate that he tries to weave it in. And you could feel it coming too. He's like, and magic spoon, here we go, breakfast cereal. But in all fairness, like I get it, they have to do that. But it's also like, oh right, they have to do that. What about
I appreciate on two opposite ends of that. I appreciate the smooth transition, but I also appreciate the, all right, guys, I have to make money. Here's the ad read.
Yes,
It's like,
yeah,
I like that. I appreciate that. I have to do this in order to keep doing this. So here it is.
Okay. And speaking of things that we have to do when things get hard, Fleet Enemas. We're sponsored by Fleet Enemas for your colon health. That's
Like I like
that was a can of seltzer water.
Like a good Bill Burr ad read. He's like,
Where he's like-
Sherry's berries.
He's like, I don't give a fuck about this. I'm being paid to read copy. The Pod Save America guys are pretty funny about that stuff too, where they're like, what? Here, whatever. These are bed sheets for y'all. And then they just kind of like go barrel through the ad. I get it. And if we had sponsors, if we were popular enough to have sponsors, we would find a way to make it. But I would hit up Ryan Airy and be like, hey, what do you recommend? Anyway, we should probably talk about what the rest of our week is going to look like. How was your last couple weeks that you've been taking? We took last week off. Your body. What did you do for your body? What did you do for your mind? And what did you do for your community and / relationships?
For body, I was a bit sick. I don't know if it was a sickness or if it was like allergy sick. But it was the whole the head congestion and all that stuff. And I took a COVID test and it said negative, but then I realized afterwards that it was like a year old. So it's probably not up to date with all the recent stuff. But it went away pretty quickly though.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was just like, I gotta rest.
You gotta recover. You gotta rest. Yeah, you gotta take the time off. I will say I've had a recent flare up of like my back pain, like the disc hernia, the sciatica stuff, which if anybody who's ever had it, it feels so alien because your muscles cramp in weird ways. You're like, it's like how like when a car gets an electrical short and it feels haunted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like there's like the radio pops on and off and you're like, what the fuck? The lights start flickering. Like it just feels haunted. That's how my lower half of my body has felt for like the last week. So I went back to the tried and true original Bob and Brad, the two most famous physical therapists on the internet. And I started doing all of those old people exercises that people do when they have sciatica and stenosis in the lumbar spine. And it works. Man, it really does. Like all of the nerve flossing, that's a thing that I recommend people look up if they have any kind of nerve pain, like nerve flossing for the sciatica. You can't overdo it because you can then overstimulate the nerves. And
very quickly, what is nerve flossing? I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that.
Nerves don't stretch the way muscles do. So sometimes what you'll have is like, because the nerve is being impinged on in some way, the nerves, it's connected from your brain through your neck all the way down, and then it splits in your lumbar spine, your sacrum to go down to your legs. Sometimes people who have incredibly tight hamstrings, or in my case, calves, it's not that the muscle is tight, it's that it's getting nerves impulses from the impingement to guard, to protect itself. So a lot of people will get oddly limited cramping, limited range of motion, certain things because the nerve is telling the muscle like activate from being pinched, or like there's some rubbing. So like I had fecal sac abutment in my spine. So what it is that it's like where the disc popped out, it's pushing against the sciatic nerve.
Yeah.
So the nerve, I wasn't experiencing pain, but what happens is that my toes would be numb and my calf would be like doing this, and my hamstrings would be so tight that I have to like figure out ways to stretch out. My butt muscles would be like locked up. So the technique is you kind of have to weave your nerves through that spine, the sheath of that the nerve sits in,
Uh-huh.
by so you extend your leg, like you do a leg extension and look this way. So that way it starts to stretch the nerve as much as possible here, and then you give it room by going like this, and it all kind of shuffles. I don't know how true all of this is in terms of like direct literal truth, but it's supposed to then pull, like move the nerve through the sheath in a way that it lubricates, so, you know, like so that it gives it like the nerve a way to move through the pathways.
Yeah, yeah.
And then so you extend your leg, you go back, and then you look down and you pull it back up while you bring your leg in. You flex your hamstring. So you kind of do this motion on either side, like from sitting in a chair or like up on one of those like massage tables so that you can hang your leg. And what it does is it like gives your nerve some mobility so that it's no longer trapped, and you kind of like move it out of the way, and it has helped. I don't know how directly. I don't know the medical or the anatomical terms to use, but it does. I have felt like a loosening of the muscles, a loosening of my calf, a loosening of the cramping, a loosening of the like sensations are like being reactivated, which
Yeah.
is a crazy feeling. I'm feeling less haunted. My body feels less haunted.
It's fascinating because I used to have sciatica pretty bad a few years ago, and occasionally I'll get like a little thing, and I'm like, "Don't you dare!" But I still get like very like tight in my lower back, and I'm like, "Oh man, is that?" I wonder if it's just like that bunching like you're talking about. Maybe I just need to thread it out.
And to be fair, you can do too much of it and it can irritate things. And you can also, like, if you do it like certain motions, you'll feel that like pull sometimes, that like
Yeah.
it's not the muscle that's it's the nerve. So you know, like when you'll reach a point of a limit with a stretch, sometimes what you're feeling is the nerve reached its limit, not the muscle.
Ooh.
So at least that's the way. I'm repeating, of course, something that was on the internet, so I don't know how accurate it can be, but I will tell you, disclaimer, I don't know how or why it worked or what the reasoning is, but I've tried it. I tried it as like a experiment, and it does work, you know, and this is, it did benefit me anecdotally. I don't know
Yeah.
what it does scientifically. So that's something that I've been forcing myself to do in an effort to kind of like get back on track, getting rid of, you know, like the rest and relaxation to get rid of an illness. I'm trying to give my body the best chance to feel good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
To then motivate continuing workouts, more stretching, more mobility, more, you know, more willpower to eat right. That's a very connected thing where it's like, if you feel benefit in one area, you're going to feel more motivated to do things in other areas as well. So, how about your mind? What have you done in the last week for your mind? Talk about rest and relaxation. How's that been for you?
Well, I think one of the good things for the mind is next weekend we're not gonna. I guess we're not gonna do a podcast next weekend because going to Disney. I'm going to Disney. You're coming to New York.
That's right. You're coming to Disneyland. We're crossing paths in the air from coast to coast.
Let's as we're going across, I'll put my hand out the window and we'll high five.
We'll do
right over Nebraska.
Yeah.
And no, but for the mind, not just, you know, when you go on vacation to go to Disneyland or anything like that, you can have fun at Disneyland. But part of the fun is also like the planning, where you're like, oh, what am I going to do? Like the anticipation, like, oh, I can't wait to go on the Indiana Jones ride. I can't wait.
Yeah, you get excited about there's the anticipation of a purely fun thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can separate whatever the stresses are. Once I'm there, it's going to be so much fun. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So a lot of the mind is just anticipation and hope and looking forward to joy.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it. Looking forward to joy. That's a great way to put it. My wife has been, I've been working a lot, working some overtime and trying to do get more money and trying to get a second car. My wife has been doing more theater out here. She got into some plays, and she just auditioned to another thing that she got into that is going to be great for her. And like there's been a very real recognition in her that I'm seeing she is got a lot of things to look forward to that have improved her mood. And I don't know, like it has this kind of ripple effect through other things. If you have one thing to be excited about, it absolutely changes your view a point of other hardships that you may overlook now. You know, you're like, oh, this is going to be hard, but ooh, I got this other fun thing coming. You know, like you're looking forward to the joy kind of makes other things also joyful. Like you take it with you, if that makes sense. Like that to me has been a kind of interesting thing to see. And I'm trying to find the ways of like, how I can do that. Where can I get my joy to like charge the batteries to then find my own, you know, like to carry it over into other things. You know, stresses have been high just because there's like a situation with a car that, you know, anytime you spend money, big money, there's always that like, what's the risk? You know, what's the investment, blah, blah, blah. So there's always that tricky balance, but like, I want to be able to find the joy in like, oh, once I have the second car, what are we going to do with it? Let's plan something. Something to look forward to. Going to New York has been a huge like thing in the future of like something to look forward to.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, looking forward to joy is a very kind of real thought. I like that a lot. And then for the community, like that's also been a chance for me to reach out to you. Oh, when can we hang out if you're going to be back? You know, I'm going to go see my friends that are getting married, and I'm going to see all my own friends. I'm going to go see my friend who's in an off-Broadway show.
Yeah.
I'm going to go see, you know, like there's a chance for me to reconnect with like friends that I haven't been near in a while. So it's always like, that's something definitely joyful to look forward to. What about you for the community and the out in the world and relationships? What has that been for you for this week?
Community is kind of hard this past week just because of the whole sickness thing where I didn't want to.
Stay away. You've embraced your community by staying the hell away.
Maybe that's the thing. It's like the community is I'm not going to affect anybody.
Yeah, you're not going to. The idea of respecting distance when you're ill is absolutely something that should be applauded and respected. But yeah, that must have been that change that really you get to feel isolated a little bit.
Yeah.
What is your so mind, body, community? What are we doing for this week? What are some of your focuses?
So this week, I think for body is I'm gonna try to exercise every single day until I go to Disney, because then once I go to Disney, I can't go to the gym, do the strength training. But I'm also gonna keep in mind, you know, you walk around a lot at Disney, so
you walk so much the other time I went, just recently. But yeah, working out, just get what is it called? You're preloading your workouts so that you can chill later. Sure.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. Also like, I'm gonna push myself almost like do almost kind of like failure training, where it's like usually I wouldn't do that every single day, but it's like if I can do that this week, I'll have like, you know, 4 days to recover from that, so I can you know, fill it up with turkey leg protein meat while I'm away, and
get those expensive ass chicken thighs in there. No, but like the turkey leg, I mean, the I was just looking at last episode's goals, and mine was do heavyweight, and I'm like, oh, no wonder my sciatica was. That was the one where I was like, oh, that's why I hurt myself. Oh my God, what a dummy. But that, I guess my focus this week will be like lightweight.
Yeah.
Sciatica recovery workouts. For mind, I'm going to say just really embracing being away from my routine. Just like the shit. I find a lot of comfort in routine, but being like, I'm going to try and embrace New York and remembering, you know, like what it was, and just kind of really leaning into this kind of go with the flow, being open to the experience of New York again, and just kind of like whatever happens, man, seeing my old friends, just like kind of living in the moment of this vacation to really enjoy. To being out. My mental focus this week will be to be present in this unique experience. You know, like this. I'm not on vacation all the time.
Not bad. I think for my mind, over the I'm going to allow myself to have unbridled joy in the sense that if I want to have a Jack Jack Num Num cookie from Incredible Land, I'll have that. If I want to have whatever treats and churros, I've never had a Disneyland churro. Apparently they're amazing, so I'll have a churro, even though it's a fried dough covered in sugar. It's but you know,
you say that like it's a bad thing. There, it's like you said, the 80-20 or whatever the thing is.
yeah.
It's don't eat, bro. Don't eat a soggy French fry has ingrained itself in both my wife and I's lives.
Dude, it's such a good policy.
It's that soggy French fry where it's like, oh yeah, I don't have to eat this if it's not rewarding me.
Yeah.
You know, that was a very real revelation. We were at a little get together yesterday for a friend's birthday, and there was like they had ordered pizza and some French fries, and then so the thing is that French fries, if you order French fries for delivery, don't ever do that. They will never be good. So we were like, ooh, French fries, and they smelled good, and we grabbed a bunch, and then we each ate one, and we were like, oh no,
you actually had
the soggy French fry, and it was like not, and we were like, oh, these aren't that good, and I went to get a second one, and I thought of you, and I was like, no more soggy French fries, and it was, I ate the pizza, which cold pizza is perfectly fine for me.
Yeah.
Cold pizza and black coffee is one of my favorite breakfasts of all time. I want to open up a restaurant that for people with hangovers that is literally just cold pizza, hot coffee, and that's it. Like, come eat pizza and hot coffee and black coffee. That's it, because there's a certain joy in the simplicity. I don't think they'll serve that at Disney, but no. I'm sure if you find it, that would be good. And I think for community, like just getting out in the world, I think just going to see my old friends is going to be great. I hope we get to hang Monday or whenever you come back, because there's going to be some overlap on the return. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get to see each other there. We could get a big old hug, big old, let's get our muscles touching hug.
Big old mound of flesh.
Yeah, that's us, man. That new podcast name, Mound of Flesh.
Mound of Flesh.
That's our OnlyFans. What do you got for community?
I'm gonna embrace the Disney adult community.
Yes!
I'm not gonna be like, well, that's dumb or that's stupid. It's like I'm gonna sing along to It's a Small World. If I go on it, I don't know if I'm gonna go on it because it's not a fun ride, but
it's not. But it is. But I like, we'll talk about it. I used to be that's dumb, whatever, until somebody talked about, like, until you realize that, that's the same thing as jocks making, like, the thing that we don't want to be. We don't want to be the ones that will yuck people's yums and put people down just for something they like. As a comic book fan and comic book movie fan, the last couple years, the last decade, people are like, it's popular now. And then people were like hating on other things, like, these are like a Martin Scorsese, like, those movies aren't cinema. It's like, but I'm enjoying it. So if you enjoy it, live your life. I don't think it's weird to be a Disney adult when there are fantasy baseball people who play fantasy baseball. That's like Excel spreadsheets. That's it. It's literally just Excel spreadsheets. And you're saying me that's not weirder? Fake baseball manager fantasy camp is not weirder than people going to a place that has things? Like, I'm sorry, they're both equally, it depends on your point of view. So I'm not going to shit on anybody.
It is interesting too, because I had an experience that kind of is going along with this, but it's the, people talk shit about the phrase safe space, but it is like, you go to Disney World or Disney Land or whatever, and it's like, everybody is there for the same reason. Like, you're allowed to be silly, you're allowed to be a kid.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing. You walk into a comic book store, you can nerd out. You don't have to pretend like you're above all that. The other day, Katie and I were in Barnes & Noble. She really likes the new Agatha show, so she was like,
yeah, so good.
So she's like, she actually bought like Scarlet Witch omnibus, and she bought like the Young Avengers Children's Crusade and that kind of stuff. But we were in looking at the graphic novels in Barnes & Noble, and this guy comes over and he goes, "Do you guys do you guys know about graphic novels?" And I was like, "Yeah." At first, I was like kind of sheepish, like, "Oh, I don't want to seem like I'm a nerd." But then he was like, "I'm looking for some recommendations," and so I was like, "Well, Watchmen is the best one." And
well,
then
let me.
and then it just started like pouring out of me, where I was like,
yeah.
I'm like nerding out right now, but it's okay because this guy wanted this.
I love. So here's the thing. I met somebody yesterday who plays Dungeons and Dragons as well. I'm DMing a campaign, and all I wanted to like talk about was they were like, "Oh, well, I don't want to nerd out over that." I'm like, "No. This is a safe place for nerdity. This is like I am an ally. Here's my thing that is super nerdy, so feel free." And I love sharing my nerdy thing, even if I get made fun of, because I can defend myself. Like I have like at a certain point, like I'm not one of these people that can't defend my position on things.
Yeah.
But if I go out and I say something, that means that if I encourage one person to then nerd out with me to get that, and that feels good. It feels good to nerd out. It feels like that guy at the comic book store gave you a chance to nerd out. And I bet you were like, yay, there's like a piece of your inner brain. I was gonna say child, but who cares if it's you going like having a little celebration, a little moment of like, yay, I can talk about this thing that's super fun and I love, like it's totally, if I can encourage one person to do that by taking the risk, then why not? That's my goal.
Yeah.
The end, period. Put a stamp on it. Everybody, we've successfully completed another episode. Will, I think we nailed it. I think we got it. We didn't talk about any of the stuff we wanted to talk about, which we never do. We talked about our so many things that matter. If you resonate with them, or if you have your own version, your own thoughts about anything we talked about today, the Caribbean food or your culture's food being villainized, the misinformation online, how you navigate social media, fitness influencers, all that to say, follow us at Zeros on Heroes, and you can be a part of the show. You can follow me at Mike Mercadal, at William A. Watkins 1, depending on the platform, but just look us up. You can email us your anything you're doing in your life that will you've shown has been improved. I'm like reading and trying to talk at the same time, and they did not come out correctly. Email us to share with us things that you are doing in your life that are improving your body, mind, and community, and the collateral benefits that have come with it. We love hearing how I want to hear the multiverse of improvement that is going on in your life. You can send it to zerosonheroes@gmail.com. And if you're watching this in the future, join us live and you can get in the comments and we can talk about it live. We improvise right in the moment. Will, is there anything else you'd like to say, like to add?
What's funny is before this, Katie said, what's your guys' topic today? And I was like, I don't know. We never have one.
The topic is literally the topic of the show and whatever we're thinking at the moment. There's some guidelines because we do try to keep it in the body, mind, community, fitness sphere. But it usually goes to, like, I was talking about prehistoric man and the medical, the thinking of like snake oil salesman.
Yeah, we're all babies.
We're talking about politics, and we're talking about how we're all babies crying when we're hungry. Like, it becomes very philosophical at a certain point. And then here we are talking about Disney adult shit. Like we run the gamut, all in an effort to improve ourselves and hopefully encourage people to improve themselves and the world around them too.
Yeah.
Will, you're looking good.
Hey, I'm just trying to look like you, brother.
Just trying to look like you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Remember to go out and be heroic.